That's a good sign. Okay. Should I read more?
Yes.
Okay. So this is going to be, so that was kind of at the beginning of the book. Now I'm going to move towards the end when I'm starting to get help, and I'm going to go to a chapter called The Intervention. And it's basically when I had an intervention done. For those of you that don't know my story, I was, at the time that I was talking about the spiritual experience, I was working as a stripper in a bar, and I was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and I was suicidal and depressed, and my life was a mess. And so that was the spiritual experience, and the coming out with being molested was what catapulted me into the healing process and started to, basically I saw God. And how do you ignore that once you see something different than what I had known all my life? So it kept me seeking and searching and wanting to heal. So, okay, so this is the intervention. It was winter of 1997, early March. Mom called. After a brief hello, she cut right to the chase. I'm planning on having a family seminar in Marin County for family members who want to participate. Would you be interested? I thought, well, gee, now there's an idea. But instead replied, well, what is it? It's a 2-day workshop with a facilitator, and she'll talk to us about family dynamics and how to heal dysfunction. I snickered under my breath, but it piqued my curiosity. I was well aware that our family was dysfunctional, and cynically I found it hilarious that after all these years my mother was actively trying to explore it. I told her I'd come, mostly because I thought I'd at least get some amusement out of it. Not to mention, I didn't have anything better to do. My Aunt Pam, my cousin Sherry, my sister Becky, my mom and grandmother, along with myself, all agreed to go. I packed enough clothes and enough meth to get me through the weekend. As long as I kept on a maintenance diet, I'd be able to function. By now, it was routine. As I headed north for what I expected would be a 2-day circus, I envisioned a herd of pink elephants dressed in multicolored jewels tromping through the room and trumpeting dysfunction through their trunks. All the while, my family sits casually eating popcorn, staring blankly at the stampede as though watching a good movie on the boob tube. This vision dominated my thoughts throughout the 2-hour drive. Upon arrival, everyone acted happy to see each other. In truth, I think we were. I hadn't seen any of them for at least a year, maybe more. I don't know what they thought of me, nor did I care. My face was pale, bearing sunken cheeks. Black Gucci sunglasses concealed my dilated eyes wherever possible. I wore tight jeans and a low-cut shirt, revealing the bones of my 98-pound body. Apart from looking like a walking skeleton, I was devoid of life. It started out as a typical family event involving a whole lot of surface conversation. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I always felt like I was on the outside looking in at everyone else loving each other, enjoying one another's company. Ever since the time we moved back from Florida, I couldn't reconnect. I ditched the party every chance I got, excusing myself to go smoke a cigarette. Every once in a while, I'd head off to the bathroom, take out a pocket baggie, and dig into it with my fingernail. One big snort accompanied by a simultaneous flush of the toilet did the trick for a couple of hours. Little did I know that everyone was fully aware of my charade. They acted as they always had, like nothing was going on. I'd come out and they'd be talking amongst themselves, refusing to look, not noticing a damn thing. Yet, to me, everything was normal. After eating lunch and checking into our hotel, we headed over to the first workshop, located in an office building not far from where we were staying. We walked into an office set up like a schoolroom, filled with plastic bucket seats, a movable chalkboard, white linoleum floors, and fluorescent lighting. I chose a chair in the second row, sat down and crossed my arms, waiting impatiently for the show to begin. I was tempted to leave my sunglasses on so my eyes didn't twitch from the glare, which felt more like a spotlight than overhead fixtures. This isn't very comfortable, I complained to myself. I turned to my cousin Sherry and whispered from the side of my mouth, "Is the whole weekend going to be like this?" She shrugged her shoulders, looking nervous and uncomfortable. She was much more reserved now than I had remembered her. It's like we didn't have anything to talk about anymore. A woman wearing a navy business jacket and knee-length skirt entered the room, breaking the silence with the tapping sound of her pump snapping across the hard floor. She introduced herself as Julie and pulled a few strands of her long locks back and adjusted them into her hair clip. Announcing she'd be facilitating the weekend workshop, she wasted no time starting her presentation on the family structure and its relationship to dysfunction. She began with the individual roles and how each person takes on a different part. I already knew I was the scapegoat or black sheep, and I yawned with a fervent wish that she would tell me something I didn't know. As she continued her lecture, she talked about alcoholism and the dynamics it plays in each of the family roles. My ears perked. I sat a little straighter. I listened intently. Her message was direct and powerful, but non-threatening. Somewhere in the middle of her presentation, I realized this lady knew what she was talking about. I began to like her. I identified with what she had to say. Slowly but surely, as the hours ticked on, I devised a secret plan to talk to her in private once the presentation was over. Maybe I could tell her where I fit in all this. Maybe I could ask for help. But how was I going to do this without my family knowing? Would I have to wait and call her later once it was all over? The sneakiness of it made it appealing, and I entertained the notion throughout the day. The evening was spent going to a family dinner and then off to bed. In typical denial style, nothing was even remotely discussed about the information that had been disseminated. Despite all my critical observations, I was completely oblivious to the fact that this was an intervention for me. I had been denied help so many times that it never occurred to me that it was about me. The next day, I found out. The morning began with Julie asking us to do some role-playing activity. I was placed in the center of a circle surrounded by our clan, and Mom was chosen to sit across from me. Julie asked me to tell my mother how I felt about an issue I cannot remember. No one knew how fast things would go sideways. What I do remember is a few words came out of my mouth, and before I could finish, my mother interrupted me, responding back with her interpretation. I instantly shut down, just as I had the day she threw my report card on the table and told me it wasn't good enough. I started crying in frustration. I was flustered and I got tunnel vision. I started shaking. No one ever listened to me. I heard my sister's voice in the background saying, "Mom, you're shaming her." I didn't know what it was. I just did what I knew to do. I got up and ran. I hightailed it out of the room, headed through the hall, down a two-tiered staircase and into the building lobby. Recognizing I had nowhere to go, and because I didn't know where I was running to, I dove into the ladies' room, looking for a place to hide. I ran to a stall and yanked on a roll of tissue, sobbing into the flowing white stream of paper. I sobbed into the flowing white stream of paper that followed me to the corner where I cowered. I couldn't take it anymore. I was falling apart. Julie came barreling through the swinging door. I wasn't expecting her. I wasn't used to anyone coming after me. When she saw me, she stopped. I turned away, leaning over one of the basins. She slowly walked over and touched me lightly on the shoulder. "Shannon," she paused, "you deserve to be free. Please let me help you set yourself free." Her voice was singing with sincerity. My heart danced in the buoyancy of her life-giving words. Like a cork being pulled from an effervescent champagne bottle, my emotions poured forth. And exuberant, rich, bubbly release of pure existential relief, a natural freedom in itself. How does she know, I thought, how does she know? I wanted out of the prison, unshackled from the chains. I wanted to be free. I continued to sob into the now disintegrating tissue. I visualized the bird on my tattoo flying off my leg and all around me. I didn't know what she meant, this thing about setting myself free, but I believed her. I needed so bad to believe. For the first time in a long time, I looked straight into the eyes of another human being and silently reached from the depths of despair for the light she was shining. I scooted closer to her. I put my head down. She needed no reply. She took me by the hand and gently led me back. I was ready. I was more than ready. I had been waiting since the night I wrote the suicide note, waiting for something to happen, to occur, some kind of miracle, and it was about to happen. So,
how does it feel now that it's all done?
It feels awesome. It feels